The stars above Earth shimmered as something massive entered orbit. A fleet of colossal alien warships, dark and metallic, hovered above the planet. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen, smooth, sleek, and terrifyingly advanced. Their arrival was not a secret. Every satellite picked up their presence, and soon the entire world was watching. Inside the United Nations headquarters, leaders from every major country gathered in panic. The live feed from the space station showed the alien fleet, each ship the size of a city. Then, a deep mechanical voice echoed across the airwaves. "People of Earth, you now belong to the Xenothian Empire. Tribute is required. You have 7 days to surrender and pay, or your planet will be destroyed." The message repeated in every language on every screen. There was no misunderstanding. This was not a request. It was an order. World leaders looked at each other, some in shock, others in fear. The Xenothians claimed to control thousands of worlds. Their fleet was known for wiping out civilizations that refused to submit. Earth had never faced an enemy like this before. In the White House, the President of the United States slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot just bow down." The Russian Prime Minister scoffed. "And what do you suggest? Their ships could burn our cities from orbit before we even launch a missile." The Chinese general leaned forward. "If we give them what they want, they will take more. We must resist." At that moment, a man in a black military uniform stepped forward. His badge read, "General Kane, Commander of Project Iron Fist." "Resistance is not impossible," Kane said, his voice calm but firm. "The Xenothians think we are weak. They believe we will surrender, but we have a plan." The room fell silent. Every leader listened carefully. Kane continued, "For decades we have prepared for war, not with each other, but for threats beyond Earth. We have weapons they do not know about. We have strategies they do not expect." The British Prime Minister frowned. "Even if we fight, how can we win? Their technology is far beyond ours." Kane smirked. "They believe that too. That is their biggest mistake." The meeting continued for hours. Some leaders wanted to negotiate, others wanted to fight. But in the end, one decision was made. Earth would not submit. As the sun set, secret underground bases came alive. Missiles were loaded, defense systems activated, satellites repositioned. Scientists worked on last-minute upgrades. Project Iron Fist was officially launched. Meanwhile, high above, the Xenothian fleet remained still, waiting for Earth's answer. They did not know that humans had already decided. They were not sending gold. They were sending fire. To be continued. The world was no longer the same. Fear and anger filled the air as people across the planet watched the massive Xenothian fleet hovering in Earth's orbit. News channels repeated the alien message again and again. Pay tribute or be destroyed. Governments were divided. Some leaders believed surrender was the only way to survive. Others wanted to fight. Secret meetings were held in underground bunkers. The fate of humanity rested on one decision. Inside a high-security military base, General Kane stood before a group of world leaders and top scientists. His eyes were cold and determined. "We cannot surrender," he said firmly. "The Xenothians do not want peace. If we give them what they want today, they will demand more tomorrow. They see us as weak. It is time to show them they are wrong." The President of the United States leaned forward. "But how? Their technology is far ahead of ours." Kane nodded. "Yes, but they are not prepared for human unpredictability. We are not like the other civilizations they have conquered. We do not submit. We fight." He pressed a button, and a large screen lit up, showing classified military projects. Project Iron Fist, an advanced defense system with powerful railguns, orbital laser cannons, and high-speed missile launchers hidden across the planet. Project Valkyrie, a squad of top-trained pilots and soldiers ready for high-risk space combat. And then the most dangerous weapon of all, Project Doomsday. Are those nuclear missiles? the German chancellor asked, eyes wide. Kane nodded. Yes, hundreds of them, ready to launch at a moment's notice. A heavy silence filled the room. Nuclear weapons were dangerous, but against a superior alien force, they were Earth's best chance. The Russian general folded his arms. If we launch nukes, we invite total war. Kane's face was like stone. War is already here. The world leaders looked at each other. There was no easy choice, but deep inside, they all knew the truth. Surrender meant slavery. War was the only option. Finally, the president of China stood. Then let's fight. One by one, the other leaders nodded. The decision was made. Earth would not bow. The countdown began. In secret military bases, soldiers prepared for battle. Scientists worked on last-minute improvements. Warships hidden in deep space came online. Satellites locked onto enemy targets. Nuclear silos were opened. The first phase of Operation Hellstorm was ready. Above Earth, the Xenothian fleet waited for their tribute, unaware that humans were preparing something else. They expected gold. Instead, they would receive fire and fury. To be continued. The Xenothian fleet remained motionless in Earth's orbit. Their massive warships, dark and metallic, floated like silent gods watching over a helpless world. They had conquered hundreds of planets before. To them, Earth was no different. Inside the lead battleship, High Commander Xyreth stood tall, his golden armor reflecting the dim blue lights of the control room. His cold, reptilian eyes scanned the reports. Humans have not responded. A lower officer bowed. They are primitive, Commander. They fear us. Xyreth smirked. Fear, that was always the same. Every weak species submitted when faced with the power of the Xenothian Empire. Earth would fall like the others. But he was wrong. On the planet below, hidden deep in underground bunkers, General Kane and his team watched the alien fleet through satellite feeds. A large countdown timer flashed on the screen. 0:10. 10 seconds left. Kane's voice was calm but firm. Launch the payload. The world held its breath. 0:05. 100 missile silos across the planet opened at once. 0:03. Hypersonic nuclear warheads, invisible to standard radar, ignited their engines. 0:01. A storm of death launched into the sky. The Xenothians didn't see it coming. Their ships were powerful, their shields nearly impenetrable, but they had never faced human unpredictability. The Xenothians expected diplomacy, surrender, or weak resistance. They did not expect dozens of nuclear missiles traveling faster than any weapon in the known galaxy. The first wave hit. Boom! The explosion was blinding. One of the Xenothian destroyers, the size of a city, was torn apart in an instant. Fire and metal rained down into the ocean below. Inside the flagship, alarms blared. High Commander Xyreth's smirk disappeared as he grabbed the control panel. Impossible. How dare these savages attack us? More warheads hit. Another explosion. Then another. 3 more Xenothian ships were destroyed within seconds. Their once invincible fleet was now in chaos. The humans had struck first, and they had drawn blood. Xyreth roared. Activate shields. Return fire. The remaining Xenothian ships powered up their weapons. Green plasma beams shot toward Earth, but they were too late. The humans had prepared. Project Iron Fist activated. Earth's hidden defense systems, massive railguns, orbital laser cannons, and missile interceptors came to life. The battle had begun. From space, it looked like a storm of fire and light. Plasma beams burned through the sky, but Earth's railguns responded with deadly force. More Xenothian ships exploded, their wreckage crashing into the planet's atmosphere. For the first time in history, humanity was fighting an intergalactic war. And they were winning. High Commander Xyreth clenched his fists. His fleet was supposed to conquer, not be destroyed. This planet, it is different. Yes, Earth was different, because Earth did not surrender. To be continued. Fire and destruction filled the sky. Earth's first strike had shaken the Xenothian Empire in a way no species ever had before. Their mighty warships, once symbols of unstoppable power, were now burning wrecks crashing into the oceans and wastelands below. Inside the lead Xenothian battleship, High Commander Xyreth watched in fury as his fleet struggled to regain control. Red warning lights flashed across his command center. Officers shouted reports, their voices filled with panic. Shields at 30%. We lost 4 more cruisers. Their railguns are targeting our main power cores. Xyreth slammed his fist against the control panel. Enough. He turned toward his second-in-command. Deploy the Dreadnought-class warships. Show these savages the true power of the Xenothian Empire. Moments later, 3 massive dreadnoughts emerged from the shadows of space. These were not ordinary warships. They were heavily armored, carrying planet-killer plasma cannons that could wipe out entire continents. On Earth, General Kane stood in the underground command center, watching the new threat on the screen. His jaw tightened. They're sending in their big guns. The president leaned forward. Can we stop them? Kane took a deep breath. We knew this would happen. He turned to his officers. Activate Project Valkyrie. High above Earth, hidden military bases opened. Dozens of advanced fighter jets and stealth bombers launched into the sky. Their mission? To take the fight directly to the enemy. The Xenothian dreadnoughts charged their plasma cannons, aiming at Earth's largest cities. Xyreth smiled cruelly. Burn them. The first plasma blast shot toward New York City. The heat alone could vaporize everything in a 500-mile radius. But before it could hit, a blinding blue energy beam struck the plasma cannon. The attack came from Earth's orbital defense stations, hidden in deep space. The plasma cannon exploded before it could fire. Xyreth's eyes widened. What? How? At the same time, Earth's fighter squadrons engaged the enemy. The sky became a battlefield of high-speed chases, missile strikes, and energy explosions. Squadron leader Captain Riker led the charge. Let's show these aliens what humans can do. His squadron weaved through enemy fire, dodging plasma blasts while launching missiles at the weak points of the Xenothian warships. One by one, the enemy's smaller cruisers fell. Inside the command center, Kane gave the final order. Launch the second strike. Across the world, hidden missile silos opened once again. But this time, they weren't carrying just nukes. They carried EMP warheads designed to disable Xenothian shields. The missiles hit their targets. One by one, the shields of the dreadnoughts flickered and died. Xyreth's heart pounded. No, this is impossible. But it was real. Earth was fighting back. And for the first time in Xenothian history, they were losing. To be continued. The war had reached its deadliest stage. The sky above Earth was filled with fire and destruction. Xenothian warships floated like wounded beasts, their once powerful shields shattered by Earth's unexpected counterattack. Explosions tore through the darkness of space as human fighters swarmed like angry wasps, striking with precision and speed. Inside the underground command center, General Kane stood tall, his eyes locked onto the battlefield displayed on the giant screen. His plan was working, but the fight was far from over. An officer turned to him. Sir, the EMP missiles have disabled their shields, but their dreadnoughts are still active. Kane nodded. Then it's time to finish them. Activate Project Iron Fist. Across the planet, hidden military platforms powered up. These were not ordinary weapons. Project Iron Fist was Earth's last line of defense. Massive orbital railguns and particle cannons mounted on secret stations hidden in deep space. High above, the largest Xenothian dreadnought prepared to fire its primary weapon. A planet-killer plasma cannon, powerful enough to turn an entire continent into ash. Xenothian Command Center, aboard the dreadnought. High Commander Xyreth clenched his fists as he stared at the holographic display. The humans had surprised him, but their resistance was meaningless. His most powerful ship was still operational, and in seconds, it would end this battle. His officer turned to him. Primary cannon is fully charged. Target locked on Washington, D.C. Fireth smirked. Fire. The plasma cannon glowed with deadly energy, ready to unleash destruction. But then, boom! A blinding light erupted in space. A massive projectile, traveling at hypersonic speed, smashed directly into the dreadnought's cannon. Tyreth's eyes widened in horror. What? Another boom. A second projectile ripped through the dreadnought's hull, causing massive explosions along its structure. Inside the human command center, an officer cheered. Direct hit. The railguns are working. Kane smiled grimly. Keep firing. Bring them down. Earth's orbital defenses continued their barrage of high-speed projectiles. The Xenothian fleet had never faced anything like this. Their armor cracked, their warships trembled, and their command centers turned into flaming wreckage. On the battlefield, Captain Riker's fighter squadron used the chaos to strike even harder. Focus on their engines, Riker shouted. His squadron weaved through enemy fire, dodging plasma blasts while launching missiles at the weak points of the Xenothian ships. One by one, their engines exploded, leaving them helpless in space. Inside his burning flagship, Kyreth stumbled, gripping the control panel. His fleet was falling apart. How could this be happening? For the first time in his life, he felt something alien. Fear. Earth was not a weak planet. It was a battlefield. And humanity was winning. The battle raged on. Earth's sky burned with fire and destruction as human forces continued their relentless attack against the Xenothian fleet. The once mighty invaders, who had arrived expecting easy victory, were now struggling to survive. Inside the underground command center, General Kane stood firm, his sharp eyes focused on the battlefield displayed on the giant screen. The strategy was working, but the fight was not over yet. An officer turned to him. Sir, our railguns and EMP missiles have crippled most of their fleet, but their flagship is still operational. Kane nodded. Then we take it down. He turned to another officer. Tell Captain Riker and his squadron, target the flagship's engines. We cannot let them retreat. The message was sent. High above Earth, among the burning wreckage, Captain Riker and his fighter squadron received their new orders. Riker smirked. All right, boys. Let's clip their wings. His squadron of advanced fighter jets weaved through enemy fire, dodging plasma blasts and counterattacks. The Xenothians were desperate now, fighting like cornered beasts. Inside the Xenothian flagship, High Commander Xyrith clenched his fists. His fleet was nearly destroyed, his warships reduced to flaming debris. He had never experienced such humiliation before. How are they defeating us? He roared. One of his officers, shaking with fear, replied, Commander, the humans fight differently. They do not run. They do not surrender. Kyreth's reptilian eyes burned with rage. Then we will burn their planet to the ground. He slammed his fist on the control panel. Activate the Armageddon protocol. A deep hum vibrated through the ship. The Xenothian flagship's core began to glow, energy levels rising dangerously. They were preparing for a suicidal last attack, a blast powerful enough to destroy the entire planet. Earth's final stand. In the underground command center, alarms blared. A scientist turned pale as he read the energy readings. Sir, their flagship is overloading its reactor. If it detonates, it will wipe out all life on Earth. A heavy silence fell over the room. Every leader, every soldier, every scientist knew. This was the moment. Kane took a deep breath. We have one chance. Riker, you need to stop them. Now. Up in space, Riker's squadron flew towards the glowing Xenothian flagship at full speed. The ship was already breaking apart, but its core was still charging. Riker gritted his teeth. We need to destroy that core before it reaches full power. His squadron fired everything they had: missiles, railgun rounds, energy blasts. But the flagship's armor was too thick. Time was running out. Riker made a decision. "I'm going in." His co-pilot gasped. "Sir, that's a suicide run." Riker smiled. Asterisk, asterisk. "Then let's make it count." Asterisk, asterisk. He pushed his jet straight toward the Xenothian flagship's core, a final gamble to save Earth. The Xenothian flagship burned like a dying star, its core glowing brighter with every second. If it detonated, it would release enough energy to wipe out all life on Earth. The humans had won the battle, but if they failed to stop the flagship's reactor, they would still lose the war. Inside his fighter jet, Captain Riker gripped the controls tightly. His squadron had thrown everything at the enemy's reactor, but the Xenothian flagship's armor was too strong. There was only one option left: a direct hit. Riker's co-pilot's voice came through the radio. "Sir, pulling out now is our only chance to survive." Riker's voice was calm. "If we pull out, Earth dies. We stop them here." He pushed the throttle to maximum, his jet screaming toward the enemy ship at full speed. The final attack. Inside the Xenothian flagship, alarms blared. High Commander Xyreth held onto the command panel as the ship shook violently. Flames burst from shattered control stations. His Empire's greatest warship was falling apart. An officer shouted, "Commander, a human fighter is coming straight at us." Xyreth's eyes widened. "What? That's madness. No pilot would." Before he could finish, Riker's jet smashed into the reactor core. Boom! A deafening explosion tore through the Xenothian flagship's interior. The once mighty warship split apart, flames consuming its structure. The glowing core flickered, unstable, its power breaking down. Xyreth stumbled backward, watching his defeat unfold in horror. "No, this cannot be. We are the Xenothian Empire. We do not lose." But they had lost. As the flagship collapsed in on itself, Xyreth gave one final roar of defiance, before he was swallowed by the explosion. Victory and sacrifice. In Earth's underground command center, the room was silent. Everyone watched as the Xenothian flagship shattered into 1,000 burning pieces, its deadly core failing before detonation. An officer whispered, "It's over. We won." Cheers erupted. People hugged. Some wept. The impossible had happened. Earth had defeated an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. But General Kane did not smile. His eyes remained on the screen, watching the debris of Riker's fighter vanish in the explosion. A soldier saluted. "Sir, Captain Riker didn't make it." Kane clenched his fists. Riker had known what had to be done, and he had given everything to do it. The president wiped his eyes. "He saved us all." Above Earth, the remains of the Xenothian fleet tried to retreat. Their leader was dead. Their greatest warship was destroyed. Their empire had been defeated by the one species they had underestimated. Humanity stands tall. As the dust settled, one thing became clear: Earth would never kneel to any empire. And in the silence of space, the universe now knew one truth: humanity does not surrender. The battle was over. Earth had won. The sky was clear now, but the scars of war remained. Burning wreckage from the Xenothian fleet drifted in space, the remains of what was once an unstoppable empire. The once mighty Xenothians, who had demanded Earth's surrender, had now been crushed by the very people they thought were weak. Inside the underground command center, General Kane stood in silence, staring at the giant screen. The battlefield had gone quiet, but his heart was heavy. They had defended Earth, but at what cost? An officer approached him. "Sir, we are detecting the remaining Xenothian warships moving away. They are retreating." Kane exhaled slowly. They had done it. The Xenothians were leaving, fleeing back into deep space. Humanity had proven itself. But victory did not come without sacrifice. The fallen hero, The doors to the command center opened, and a group of soldiers walked in, carrying something precious, Captain Riker's flight helmet. A hush fell over the room. One of the soldiers spoke. "Sir, he saved us all." The president stepped forward, taking the helmet with shaking hands. He turned to the gathered officers, his voice heavy with emotion. Captain Riker's bravery ensured Earth's survival. He knew the cost, and he still chose to fight. ***. Kane clenched his fists. He will not be forgotten. Across the world, people gathered in the streets. News of Earth's victory had spread, and so had the story of the pilot who had given his life to stop the Xenothians. His name would live on forever. The Empire in chaos. Far from Earth, deep in the Xenothian Empire, the news of defeat spread like wildfire. The great High Commander Xyreth was dead. Their most powerful fleet had been destroyed. For the first time in thousands of years, the mighty empire was shaken. Other alien races, once afraid of the Xenothians, began to see a weakness. Rebellions erupted. Slave worlds fought back. The empire was crumbling. And at the center of it all, one name was whispered in fear among the Xenothian rulers. Earth. They had underestimated the humans. They had believed them to be weak, simple creatures. But now, the universe knew the truth. Humanity was not prey. They were warriors. A new future. Back on Earth, leaders gathered in secret meetings. This war had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The stars were full of enemies, but also opportunities. Kane stood before the assembled world leaders. "We survived because we fought together. But the fight is not over. We must prepare for what comes next." The president nodded. "The universe now knows of Earth. The question is, what do we do next?" Kane's eyes hardened. The war was over, but Earth would never be the same again. For the first time in history, humanity had defeated an advanced alien empire. The battle against the Xenothians had proven one thing: Earth was not weak. But victory was only the beginning. Preparing for the future. In the underground command center, General Kane stood before a large holographic display. It showed the remnants of the Xenothian fleet fleeing back into deep space. Earth had survived, but Kane knew one truth: they will return. The president sat across from him, along with the world's top military leaders. "The Xenothian Empire may be wounded, but they are not gone," the president said. "They will regroup. They will come back." Kane nodded. "That's why we can't wait for them." The room fell silent. An admiral leaned forward. "You're saying we should attack." Kane's voice was firm. "I'm saying we take the fight to them. Earth cannot remain a single planet in an empire-filled galaxy. We must expand, or we will be conquered." Murmurs filled the room. It was a bold idea. Humans had never traveled beyond their solar system. But now they had Xenothian ships, weapons, and technology. They had a chance to rise. The president took a deep breath. "Then let's make it official." He stood up. "From this moment forward, Earth is no longer just a planet." He looked around the room. "We are an empire. The First Fleet." The next few months changed everything. Scientists worked day and night, reverse engineering Xenothian technology. Factories built new warships, stronger and faster than any before. The First Fleet of the Earth Defense Force, EDF, was born. Old rivalries between nations disappeared. Humanity was united with one goal: to conquer the stars. And they would begin with the Xenothian Empire. Deep in the enemy's territory, far across the galaxy, the Xenothian Council met in secret. Their empire was in chaos. With High Commander Xyreth dead, their military was in disarray. Slave worlds had revolted. Governors fought among themselves for power. And now, a disturbing new report had arrived. A trembling officer spoke. "The humans. They are coming." Silence. One of the council members hissed. "Impossible. Their planet is primitive." The officer swallowed. "Not anymore." He displayed holograms of Earth's new fleet, massive battleships, armed with weapons stronger than anything the Xenothians had seen before. The council members looked at each other, their expressions turning to fear. For the first time in history, the Xenothians were not the hunters. They were the hunted, and humanity was coming for them. The stars were no longer silent. A fleet of massive Earth warships tore through space, heading straight for the heart of the Xenothian Empire. No longer just defenders, humanity had become something greater, conquerors. At the front of the fleet, aboard the flagship ESS Vengeance, General Kane stood on the bridge, watching as the enemy's homeworld appeared in the distance. The time for revenge had come. "Sir, enemy defenses detected," an officer reported. "They are scrambling their fleet." Kane smirked. "Good. Let them try." The final battle. On the surface of the Xenothian homeworld, alarms blared. Their leaders gathered in panic. The mighty Xenothian war machine had once dominated the galaxy, but now it was fractured and weak. Their forces had not yet recovered from Earth's resistance. And now, Earth was here to finish what had begun. In orbit, the first shots were fired. Human warships unleashed a storm of railgun rounds and plasma cannons, cutting through enemy defenses. The Xenothians fought back, but their ships were slower, outdated compared to the newly advanced Earth fleet. Fighter squadrons engaged in brutal dogfights. Missiles, lasers, and explosions filled the void of space. But the humans fought with ruthless efficiency, their technology now surpassing that of their former oppressors. The fall of an empire. Inside the Xenothian capital, the ruling council watched in horror as their fleet crumbled. They were supposed to be weak, one council member whispered. Another slammed his fist on the table. "They are monsters. We should have destroyed them when we had the chance." A deep voice echoed through the chamber. And now, it's too late. The doors burst open, and human soldiers stormed in, heavily armed, armored, and unyielding. At their front, Kane entered, his cold eyes scanning the alien rulers. "Your empire is finished." One Xenothian leader hissed, "We will never bow to you." Kane nodded. "That's fine." He turned to his soldiers, then wiped them out. Gunfire erupted. The reign of the Xenothians ended in blood and fire. A new galactic power. With the fall of the Xenothian homeworld, humanity had claimed its place among the stars. No longer just a species on a single planet, they were now the rulers of their own growing empire. Kane stood on the balcony of the captured palace, watching as the human flag was raised over the alien city. The war was over, but a new journey was beginning. The stars belonged to Earth now, and humanity would never kneel again. The end, or the beginning.